Okay. There we go. Even I had to take myself off mute. Okay, cool. So I don't hear myself. Got more than one device. So you can't hear me now? Took myself off. Yeah. 5 second delay. I had to take myself off mute. Emma Yakira. So I make sure I didn't hear myself on other devices. So like I say, shalom everyone. I'm Aki El Karar, and here we are on Show and Prove, and today we are talking about Carthage. When outsourcing goes wrong. Make sure get that up. So well, with this one, it's a two-parter, so we're doing part one. And I always found Carthage interesting historically, and I've heard Chief, mention it, but a little bit about a little bit. He didn't talk much about it, but then he'll throw in a little something, little something each time. You know what I'm talking about? And I just remember, for me personally, me and my Baba used to talk about Carthage in some of our talks that we would have, and and things like that, fun things, But when we were doing basically economics for Shamanu, some things that would come to mind was Carthage and its economic practices and things like that. So that's what we're on today. So shalom, brother Ramik. So we just gonna get into it because look, they say Emma Yakira, we got slides. So just in case, I don't see her in here, but just in case they go South the Ahava X. Did you bring slides? Who's like, yes, South we got slides just in case. if you don't know, but just in case she wants to bring the slides, we got them. So let's get it going, right? Okay, so as you can see, that's the title. You know what I'm talking about? So here we are asking, well, what is Carthage? You know what I'm talking about? And sometimes it's easy to basically, also, ask yourself that, because there are certain cultures or people that will say, Carthage, was not African. Now, man, why do I feel like Dr. John on this one? I just feel like that, like that's what he would say. Like I'm just anyway. But what you have to understand is that during the founding of Carthage, there is no Africa. Yes, let me be the first to tell you, there is no such thing as Africa. Africa that don't come till later. So now some people say that the continent was called a Kebelan and things like that. But just so you know, there is no such thing as Africa at this point in time, or what we're talking about. There is no Africa in a sense. It doesn't exist. It don't. I know people say, or call, the regions that we're talking about historically as Africa, but it didn't. It didn't exist. It didn't exist. So whatever, you know what I'm saying? But they're really just trying to say that, Carthage didn't have melanin rich people in it, right? And things like that. But you gotta understand that Carthage was also, a naval superpower, and it was founded in 814 BCE, or BC, before Christ, or before Common Era. You know what I'm talking about? And it was, as they would say, Carthage was Phoenician. And then you have to ask yourself, you say Carthage wasn't melanin rich, it was Phoenician. And and then they say, Phoenicia was in modern day Lebanon. But you have to understand that even though Phoenician is in modern Lebanon, there was no Lebanese in Phoenicia. Phoenicia, or where they were, is actually the land of Canaan. Okay. So don't get it twisted, but you gotta understand it's all in the manual. I know, Achoti Yafe it's in the manual, to keep them off the trail. Tell them that that these people were somebody else, but not them, not them, or whatever, you know. But but with the Phoenicians, they were city states, city states on that coast of Canaan, and one of them was, Tyre, and the people of that region, or the people of that city, colonized what is Carthage now. What is Carthage. But they also colonized more than just, Carthage, or what you would say Tunisia. They did Cyprus, all along, basically, the African coast, and Sicily, and Mauritania and Morocco, all on that. We just gonna say the northwest African coast, because Egypt and had that other game on lock, right? And so, one thing about Carthage, as you can see, it's a naval superpower, right? But one thing I want you to pay attention to is the port. That big circular structure right there. That's the Carthaginian port, which I consider a world wonder, because no one has able to imitate that port. They, like I say, they are a naval superpower in trade, and they have a great navy. But that port, I mean, to me, it should be a wonder of the ancient world, just because how they do it. One, how they do it. Two, it's like no one's done that before. No one's done that before. But they come to this region, what I'm talking about. But there's like Achoti Yafe say, and they're Canaanites. But then here's, if they're so-called, they just want to make, Phoenicia Greek-like, But if they are Canaanites, but this explains why, the Phoenician alphabet is, pretty much looks like what? If you ever been, in elementary school, and your teacher talked about the Phoenicians, they will always talk about the Phoenician alphabet. They never show it to you, right? But if you look at what I'm showing you right now, you see the similarities to Old Hebrew. And it's like, okay, well, make it make sense. You say they, but like I say, it's to keep you off the trail that, That ain't true, but yes, Old Hebrew, Phoenician Old Hebrew looks exactly the same. But then also, you do more research, and then you find out that the Carthaginians was also using shekels. I was like, why they, me personally, I was like, why they using, shekels? I call them shekels, but shekels, what I'm saying? In their economy, you know. Um, I found that very interesting. But then they also colonized um, a place called the Iberian Peninsula. And sometimes we all know who Iber is. And you if you do uh, or read doing research, you will see that Iber is spelled with an E, or it is spelled with an HE or with an I. Depending on the time period. Sometimes it's depending on the time period of which they were writing about it. That's what I've seen. But like, oh, these people, you know, they go here, they go there, but they're not. They say they're not you, but they're phenomenal when it comes to naval power or naval supremacy. You know what I'm saying? And naval trade. You know what I'm talking about? One thing that they had was they trade in was tin, which they got from, the Iberian Peninsula. And they also, had silver mines, which was very interesting to me. Okay. Oh, peace, Albarash Kush. Funny that the structures created by, well, I can do that. Funny that the structures created by ancient melanin dominant people can never be recreated or fully understood like the pyramids. Yeah, you're going to find that out. I would say, as you look throughout history, you're going to find out that there are some things that only melanin rich people do that nobody else can recreate. And you're just like, but like the pyramid, you know, that was something. Or the Sphinx. I would, pyramids are in the Sphinx. you know. That's probably older than well, not probably, but it's older than the pyramids. Just look at the watermarks. That tells you a lot right there. But they, they'll probably say, but yeah. Is unknown. Come on. Exactly. But that's Wikipedia. Oh, that's I don't use Wikipedia. No, I can't use that. Yeah, you can fix that just writing in. But yeah. So moving right along. So you see that. And then okay, now the political system of Carthage, right? It's a democracy. Which is basically about a government in which certain amount of property is necessary for office, or a government in which love of honor is the ruling principle. Basically, also what that means is that, well, one, Carthage has a senate. You know what I'm saying? That's what they had. They had a senate, but also it was based on money and merit. So if you was ranking in the dough, you was probably an elected official as well, because you've shown and proved that, you can make money, you can lead. But also, if you were a general, you were also in the Carthaginian Senate. The issue will probably be is that um, those that were not generals had less influence than those uh, senators that made money, through naval trade and things of that nature. You know what I'm talking about. But that's one thing to pay attention to. But here's a map of the trade routes. It's a little bit cut off, but also if you can sort of see that the trade routes also enters Britain. I had to use what I could use, but it also enters Britain, and it also goes. It doesn't show, but also goes into the Black Sea, and all around the Adriatic Sea as well. That because they went everywhere, and I mean everywhere. you know. So that's something you have to. But that's how they made their money. They were able to basically, control naval waters to where hey, you got to come through us to get this or get that because rerun the sea. Rerun the sea. um so that's something to take in. But they were making so much money, you know what I'm saying, and just balling. We're just gonna say balling and dripping. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, you know, yeah. As soon as you come through the straits, yeah, yeah. So also, here's something to take into account. So from 500, which is basically 500 BC, to the first Punic War with Rome, more than 200 years, there is no mention of sea robbery, state against state, in Carthaginian waters. Even private piracy was rare. So why these people were controlling, basically the Mediterranean sea and other naval waters, wasn't no piracy going on. And what's interesting, at least what I found interesting, is that the Etruscans, which is in Italy, they were known to be fearsome pirates. I didn't know that, but I was like, huh? But if you know who the Etruscans are, they were known for being feared pirates. Like, you know, but yeah. And the Carthaginians put stop. Hey, y'all can't do that, But they cut all that out. Now think about, I don't think even certain. Well, you know, think about Spain, like 1492, they're getting to go, but there's so much piracy going on, they can't even control the waters. But yet they have the Spanish Armada, and then you have the British and things like that. No, it's like no one can do what they did in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Where they control, not only trade but also naval security or sea security. To where that's a rare occurrence. Like that I also found interesting. You're able to make money and you're able to police, thus, these waters, which is very interesting, so as we go along now, in line way, in economics and education, it says, we lose much of our wealth because of unwise choices in friends, mates, and acquisitions. Sometimes we seek an extravagant lifestyle that encourage excess and gluttony. These lifestyles cause us to ignore the financial warnings that our a new law provides us. We become drunken with the superfluous pursuit of luxury, and in that drunken stupor, we make injurious choices. We should not move through the world as thoughtless beings. Now, that's just basically for me. We've already talked about that in Shema Nu, but historically, that's just foreshadow. Oh, that's why I use that quote, just because it's foreshadows everything that's going on or will go on, with Carthage and their choices. That one passage alone tells you everything you need to know of what went wrong, you know, or what's going to go wrong as we move along during the next two strongs. Your choices in mating and friends and things like that causes to have this drunken stupor. I'm talking about, and you will see it. You're this naval superpower, but then you're making so much money and things like that. You're going to end up being foolish, as the saying as saying goes. A fool and his goal is soon parted. What I'm talking about. So in Ecclesiastics, we have, whoever loves money never has enough, and whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. So now we're gonna get into the First Punic War, which was from 264 to 241 BCE. And as you can see, this is a map of Sicily, which is off basically the tip of the of the thigh boot of Italy. But you have to understand that Italy was not Italy then. It basically was sort of a land of regions, or kingdoms for a bit, until basically before the First Punic War. It like they just got the bottom of the boot, from Pyrrhus, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on when we get into innovation. But Sicily play interesting enough. Sicily plays sometimes an integral part in wars. Like for me, when it comes to World War II, I'm always thinking about Messina, especially movie, a movie, old school movie, Patton, and he points out Messina, Bill. If we, if you give me your go ahead and okay, I'll be there by now. We be able to kick the Germans out of Italy, But also, that same place, which is also going to be called Messina, during this time, which is Messina now, also plays an integral part in the First Punic War, because of the simple fact that you have Italian mercenaries called the Mamertines, right? From Campania, and they basically occupy the city of basically Messina or Messina. I may be going back and forth with those two names. And so, they're fighting with basically the kingdom of Syracuse, which is also in the southeast of Sicily, which is their purpose. So that's what they're fighting. Like the Mamertines are the yellow, the Syracusans are in the southeast, and the Carthaginians is all that all that territory to the west. You know what I'm talking about. But they're fighting the Syracusans, and the Syracusans are, going back and forth. So what they do is they ask Carthage for help. And so, because Syracuse and Carthage, they're enemies, and they got bad blood between them. Because at one point in time, the Syracusans actually went and invaded, Carthage, but not the city, but they actually set foot on Carthaginian soil at one point in time, you know. And so they go to aid the Mamertines, but also that's what happens when you don't choose your allies or your friends. What the Mamertines do as well, they ask Rome for help. And so the Romans come in, and that's where the issue comes in, because you got the Carthaginians saying y'all can't come, to Messina or anything like that, but they get in there anyway, and that's when the fighting stops. For one point in time, they are, before the First Punic War, I would say that they do have an amicable relationship. They do fight. They sort of fight with Rome against Epirus, or the king Pyrrhus, which Epirus is in Greece, Macedonia, if you know. And peace, Asar Khufu. Okay. Everywhere? Everywhere. Yeah. And so once Rome beats Pyrrhus, that's where you get Pyrrhic or Pyrrhic victory from, because of the simple fact that what it means is that you win, but at a great casualty cost. Like, you pretty much got your butt whooped, but you won the battle anyway. But you lost. Look, you suffered so many deaths and casualties that it wasn't worth it at all. That's what you get. Pyrrhic or Pyrrhic victory from. From that, from Pyrrhus actually fighting the Romans in Southeast Italy, and things like that. So, at first, they fight against Syracuse, but then, the Romans basically go on the side of Syracuse, and so now they're at war with Rome. And that's when everything just goes wrong. But this what happens when you instigate a fight. First of all, these these mercenaries, isn't Carthage's problem, but because they're trying to get an advantage on Syracuse, they help out. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, which this goes horribly wrong, because that friend also is like a choosy Susie. I just put it like that. A choosy Susie who, goes to you and asks you for help, but then she got somebody else to help her out as well. Then y'all fight, while that person was the instigator of it all. That's what happens in this, These Mamertines are the instigators, or the third party instigators, that basically causes this big war. You know what I'm talking about? And so, in the Anu way, it is said it is acceptable to utilize defensive force when protecting your family, body, or personal property. All Anu men must be prepared in the martial sciences. There is no exceptions to the preparation of of the warrior temperament. It is sensible for a homestead master to train all the members of his estate in self-defense, but that is his prerogative. If he chooses to take the full responsibility of defending the persons of his family at all times, be judicious when distinguishing between unconscious violence, necessitous force, and complying disciplining, right? Um, there was another um, text I was going to use. It's from, but I didn't. I probably should have, but I was like, should I use it? Should I not use it? But it comes from, the second surah of the Quran, from like 190 to 193. I'm just gonna say 193, and it talks about not being the aggressor and how to always be on the defending arm of a fight. I also thought that could have helped out with this point, because here you have Carthage, basically one. They didn't follow. They didn't follow this with their own citizenry, because we all know that they outsourced and had a military, mercenary army. But also, you could say a mercenary slash I want to say tributary levy army as well when it comes to the surrounding regions around Carthage, i.e., Libya and Numidia and Mauritania. That's where you get Mari, more. I don't have to tell you pretty much who these people were. That's, or you could say Berber. Especially when Libya right there, Barbary curse, bam, what I'm talking about. But all these terms sort of come later and it says, but they're there. So you can already tell you who and even, if you read some military books, depending, even though Carthage had a mercenary army, the bulk of their mercenary army were melanin rich men, melanin rich soldiers. You know what I'm talking about? And me personally, those are the people that helps to win wars. You know what I'm talking about? What you know about that Numidian cavalry and that that infantry. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, might as well have lost. Yeah, because of the simple fact that because they have a mercenary army, their own citizenry are not soldiers. They don't, and not only that, they have basically, I want to say, like vassal states around them that just gives them troops and tribute, monetary tribute. They don't bring them under Carthaginian under the Carthaginian flag. They just, okay, but that's one thing that's different from Rome in a sense, and we know that throughout Roman history, they always sort of, once they conquer a place, they bring them in, under Roman law and Roman statutes and things like that. That may take some time for them to become Roman citizens, but they still bring them under, like Rome, for centuries had, soldiers from other tribes and countries, but they put them under basically Roman auxiliaries. That's what they are. Roman auxiliaries. They ain't Roman legions, but they're Roman auxiliaries. You know what I'm saying? You know, things like that. In case you don't know, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah. Um, but also, also um in the Anu way, it says, our goal in career and entrepreneurial pursuits is to focus on how we might innovate existing innovations. Innovation takes something that exists and engineers a method to make it better. You know, now one thing that made Carthage a naval superpower was their ships, and they had very agile ships. Um, and basically with naval warfare, what would happen is that you know the key thing was to ram the ship so you can basically punch a hole in it and make the ship sink. And they were good at it. They were good at it. But because Rome is a land power. It's a land power. We know this. They're not good on the seas. They basically don't even have a real navy. But what they do is innovate, which the Carthaginian don't. Even when it came to their military, Rome innovates. Like, because I read some books, that's one thing that sometimes military scholars would say about Carthage is that they don't, actually, really recruit a citizenry army among their people. They just go with the mercenaries, and mercenaries can go either way. They can betray you, especially if the money run out. Like I said, foreshadow, right? But because Rome wasn't a real naval superpower, and they know that, basically, that Carthage, has this type of navy, they start building, but also they innovate, when it comes to their navy, to stop them from basically ramming them, you know. And so this is what they create, they create a ladder basically that can puncture into basically we're gonna say the deck of the ship, as they get close, and have men go aboard the ship and just basically make it a land battle. You know what I'm saying? But it's not just that, it's also Rome copies people and say it's theirs. Like for me, doing this, I did not know, but it's a big thing that the Roman sword, the gladius, not really originated by the Romans. They actually got it from the Iberians, they say the Iberian tribes. Now, for me, I look at not only the landmass, but look who they say is there. Now, if you look at like Gaulish, because they say, oh, they got it from the Gauls. But if you look at Gaulish swords, don't look like no gladius. You look at Celtic swords, don't look like no gladius. Sometimes for me, it's like the hilt tells it all. I'm like, who puts circles on hilts? Like, who literally does that? And you go to certain parts of the continent, and you see swords or hilts with circles at the bottom of the hilt, also at the top. But I found that interesting. I was like, you see that scabbard? Why is it so gaudy? It's like, but I've seen, Rome ain't even like that. But they, it's like, but you got it from, the Iberians. So, make it make sense. You know what I'm talking about? You didn't get it from the Gauls. You didn't get it from the Celts, because you look at their swords, it's like I say, sometimes the hilt is very telling. Because I was like, I've seen that dang on scabbard, well, not, but hilt, in especially in that design on certain African swords, but later on, you know what I'm talking about. But I found that interesting, like, also aqueducts. I know they try to, yeah, copy, but just find out. I mean, you can research just like these Rome copy, like, oh, but that's one big thing, because you have military stories of like, oh, the Roman gladiators, this was a marvel, this was an achievement, but then you find out they didn't create it at all. Oops. But yeah, you sunk my battleship. But yeah, that's one thing. But also, innovation in army movements. Now, this is something I couldn't understand, but the Carthaginians got a lot of we just gonna say Hellenistic or Greek ways, especially when it comes to army, because they use phalanxes and things like that. Now, before the Punic War, like I told you, a Greek king, Pyrrhus, who who fought Rome on their own soil, got straight washed with you would think that the innovation would come there, also, but the thing is that when it comes to the Carthaginian army, it's very punishable if you fail, especially to their generals. If you fail, they gonna kill you. You're gonna receive some sort of punishment if you fail. You know what I'm saying? But also they also outsource, I want to say, like military contract, generals. You know what I'm saying? Especially like during the First Punic War. That's what they did. With one. His name starts with an X. But it's Greek, so it's hard for me to explain it. But it should be Zeno. I can't say it, but X. But he helps out, reforming, in a sense, the Carthaginian army, in a sense, because they were a mess. Rome is decimating them and dang on Sicily. You know what I'm saying? And so much so, they actually get to, they actually set foot on Carthaginian soil, but this is a long, drawn out war. You never want that, because you can't make no money. War is a racket. Don't get me wrong, but this is before, World War I, World War II, where, people figured out the formula how to make money during a war. So war is a racket, especially if you make your money on waters, and then you have so much, naval warfare, you can't make no money on the seas. You know what I'm talking about? I know, Master Living. We saw something good this time, but it just wasn't that, just wasn't that, Look, okay, they copy gods, they copied the Greeks when it came to gods and just put new names on them. But we all know what the Greeks got. Well, don't say it though, but it is what it is. So, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So they getting washed and everything, and that's an issue. But they can't make no money, and then you're carrying on this war for over 20 years. They are fighting Rome for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? That's not good for the economy. Like I say, especially if you're the naval superpower. So that goes on, and they realize, they can't keep going. You know what I'm saying? But they try to negotiate. And so by negotiate, or at least trying to negotiate, one, I'll show you the map. But this is basically this shows more than the first. This also shows a bit of the Second Punic War, but um, we're just focusing on the first. So if you see like Sicily and how they got to, like I said, to basically Carthage and things like that, or the Carthaginian regions, you sort of realize, yeah, it was bad, you know. Um, but you also get to see, you know, how much um, regions that Carthage has, and how much, you know, territory that Rome has in a sense, and who outmaneuvers, who has more territory, but you know, ends up basically straight up getting washed, you know, because they fail to innovate, and they listen to the wrong people. Oh my goodness! They do this more than once, but they listen to the wrong people. You know what I'm saying? They listen to the wrong people. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, they don't require their men to, you know, be warriors. They outsource for that. They outsource that to people, you know, that actually good at fighting, though. And we're not talking about the Celtic warriors. And no, we talking about we talking about that cav. We talking about that infantry that they basically went down south and east and west to, you know, hey, come fight for us. You know what I'm saying? That's who we talk about. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but also it sort of, you know, resets Carthage all the time, because if you lose, like I say, if you lose as a general, you die. You know, you know. So then you always got to have a new general. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, okay, you lose, well, don't lose them. You know, learn from it and try again. It's always a reset and a reset. You know, which is not good. You know what I'm talking about? So you have that. You know, so but because of this long drawn out battle, you know, negotiations started happening, and then we have the Treaty of Lutatius, right, which happens in, you know, 241. The negotiations happen in 241, and then it's amended in 237. You know what I'm saying? Now one thing you see in the first two bullet points is that, you know, Carthage has to pay, you know, 22,000 talents of silver, you know, for 20 years, you know. And as you can see, I also put, you know, one talent equals, you know, 1,200 ounces, and it's equal to 27, you know, $1,228 $1,000 in today's money, right? So if you know that, you basically know that if you got to pay, you know, 20, then this is the first deal, or the first negotiation. If you have to pay 2,200 talents for 20 years, you know, by our standard of money now, that's $1.1 billion. I'm gonna tell you that right now. they basically they doing them like Versailles, but like the Germans in Versailles. You didn't start the war, but you gonna pay this money. So that's that's what's happening. But if they took this deal, that's how much they would have Rome would have got. They would have got $1.1 billion. 1.1 and a half, you know, over a little bit over that, but $1.1 billion. Or you could say 1.2, you know, if you want to round it off, you know, but $1.1 billion. That's how much they would have got. That's a lot of money. You know, that is a lot of money in a sense. And so also, you know, they have to release Munka's claim on Sicily, and release Roman prisoners without ransom. However, Carthaginian prisoners, will be ransomed off. So just think about that. If you want these prisoners of war back, you want to pay for them. So that's more money. you know, that's but then we get that is a lot of amendments. Now with the amendments, you still gonna have to relinquish claims on Sicily and Roman prisoners without ransom and whatnot. But the amendment is hand over, the surrounding islands of Sicily for one, you know, and that's just the ones that's basically between Italy and Sicily, not the big ones. And then pay basically 22,000 talents, but 1,000 up front, which is 32 hundred. But you have to pay 2,200 for 10 years. Now 2,200 10 years, that's just like 500 million, like 506. We just gonna say 506. Remember, that's correct. But that's how much you're paying. Just think about what you could have been getting if you said 20 years. You could have got twice that. But yeah, yes, Ramik, it is a extortion. That's why you do not like one of them presidents said, we do not negotiate with terrorists because this is what happens. You did start this war, but you also have to understand that also not only is Carthage in financial and economic ruin, but so is Rome. That's why they ask, hey, we need 1,000 up front because they got to pay back loans, you know what I'm saying, to nobles and stuff, Roman nobles and stuff, because they didn't borrow money and stuff. So, sometimes if you know that if you have good information and you know that your enemy is also on the ropes, that's why you won't sort of want to endure and be like, man, I'm gonna bring you to your knees if I just endure a little bit, but they don't do that. They're the ones that'll take any deal, and that's what happens. They getting extorted, which they ain't playing. You want to say play the game? they ain't playing the game like, oh, they ain't even trying to negotiate the best deal. They just taking whatever. So they go for that deal, man. You know what I'm saying? And in our new way, it's in sub column of spending, it says, we should not owe anyone for a long-term period. As the borrower, we do become a servant to the lender. Now that could be, I know it says lender, but you're still, in this sense, you're still becoming the servant of the person that's extorting you. You know what I'm saying? So it still applies, you know what I'm talking about, to the situation. You know what I'm saying? And this is, this is going to cause a lot of issues for Carthage. You know what I'm talking about? And, they're going to be hemorrhaging money. But the funny thing is, they're in financial ruin. But if you research a little bit about, Carthaginian mining, is that their silver mines ain't gone dry. Like during the wars, they're still mining on, in Carthage. They're still mining silver. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that for 10, but I do know that they're mining that during the wars they're still able to mine for silver. But that's still, this still causes problems, in a sense. Even if the mines ain't gonna dry and whatnot, it's still gonna cause problems because that's a lot of money for 10 years. Who gonna pay that? I'm already giving you Sicily, and here you is asking for money. You're extorting me. This is extortion, and they ain't trying to extort back. I'm like, well, shoot, I want money for paying this up for sub. I don't know, But also, what goes on as well is the mercenary war, or also called the truceless war. We're going to talk a little bit more about the mercenary war in the second installment. But what you need to know is that, okay, because as it goes, Carthage ain't got no money because they got to pay Rome. You know what I'm talking about? And now, because they ain't got no money, they can't pay their mercenaries. And so the mercenaries revolt. And they revolt on the land of Carthage. And they also revolt in the other two big islands, Sardinia and Corsica. And that's going to also play a pivotal role in a sense. You know what I'm saying? One of the Carthaginians is stored in the Iberians too. For 10, yeah. For 10, yes. I would say they're storing them for 10. Yeah. That resource, yeah, they're storing, yeah. I would say before I didn't want to get, but before I would say before them boys come, them barkers, yeah, the Carthaginians are, but it's just not the Iberians. They are extorting. They're gonna be extorting, the ones next to them as well. That's why they revolt, especially the Libyans. You know what I'm saying? And also because of the simple fact they can't get loans from Egypt. They try to get a loan from Egypt, and Egypt's like, nope. That's also a reason why as well. They was trying to get a loan, they couldn't get it. Egyptians said no. So, but yeah, Master Minulet. So, but yeah, and then that causes a problem, and then it's going to cause a little bit of a contention with Rome, which we'll get into a little bit more in depth next installment. But also the first line, let's talk about a little bit about him. You know what I'm talking about? I call him the first line, but that is Hamilcar Barca. Now, he's the Carthaginian general that even in Sicily, he's winning. Hamilcar is winning in Sicily. And he's a dissenting voice, in Carthage. Because he's winning. You know what I'm saying? He's winning. Everybody else ain't, but he is, right? Now, when it comes to the negotiations, they first ask Hamilcar to negotiate. And then they tell him, accept any deal, any deal that they offer. And he says, no, I'm not doing that. Because he doesn't see, the need for negotiations or a truce anyway. However, he says, Gisco, who runs Little Biome in Sicily, he's already going to negotiate with the Romans anyway. So I'm not going. He's already doing it. But he says, no, we don't need to negotiate. Credit score, as Mingler says, credit score was too low. Too many missed chariot payments. The Carthaginians didn't have chariots. They didn't have chariots. They had cavalry, but they didn't have chariots. They didn't have chariots. But we can say what's something. Too many, they laid on these silver payments. We'll just say that they laid on these silver payments since they do got silver mines, and that's one thing that you could trade. You laid on your silver payment, bro. You're supposed to be paying that to us, and you didn't. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, So, but yeah, they can, yeah, low credit score. But this, my thing is, how you got a low credit score and you, well, you know, I guess when you sort of trying to get back on top, and when you're trying to get back on top, you paid in full. It's like it's like we're rich. It's like, yo, man, they extorting his little brother, you know what I'm talking about? And he goes to Rico, like, yo, man, we move these keys, I pay off this person, to get my little brother back. And then when I get my brother back, we right back on. Like, you got the keys with you right now? you know. It's sort of like that situation, right? They were like, well, it wasn't. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a yacht. A Chelsea Yafe. Actually, well, it's a hard word to say, probably because it's Greek, but your choir ream. It should be it because there's many different classes of ships. You got your trireme, you got your quadrireme, and then you got your it should be quarter. It's hard to say, but yeah, I wanted to probably later on the page. But then again, I wouldn't say, well, around this time they will be. Yeah, they're pretty Hellenized too. Yeah. Yeah, the Egyptians are Hellenized too, and this is the time of the Ptolemies, so they will be riding dang on triremes and whatnot. Yeah. Just had to think about it. Yeah, the Ptolemies said no. Just so y'all know, it was the Ptolemies, which was the Greeks that ran Egypt. For those that don't know, during the time of Alexander, there was a general called Ptolemy. And when Alexander died, his kingdom was divided into many regions, and one of them was given to Ptolemy, and he chose Egypt. And so it is actually it's Ptolemy the second that tells them no. So, yeah, this is during the time for, if we going that far east, to Kemet and whatnot, is during the time of the Ptolemies as well. So the Ptolemies told them no. Why you tell that boy Rico? Yeah. Hey, it is what it is, man. But I sort of see that's you trying to get back on top and rule the seas, and you got they extort me for this money. Once I pay off these dang on Romans and deal with these dang on mercenaries, we back on. It's not going the way they want. It's just not. But yeah, that's one thing to pay attention to is that Hamilcar is the dissenting voice, but outweighed by the Senate, and things like that. And they just want to enter the war because they want to make some money, but it's not going their way. They got too many dang problems anyway. So in part 2, we get to them. We get to Hamilcar and how he raised his boys to go get them Romans. You know what I'm talking about. All your life you be an enemy of Rome. That's the oath you make. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, gotta love them bargains. But yeah, but it's not the end for Carthage. They gonna keep on going, but it's just outsourcing. No one learned the lesson. Don't outsource. Look, let's get these people, that actually live on. You know what? Let's incorporate the Numidians. They ain't doing much. We love their cavalry anyway. Why don't we make them, Carthaginian citizens? Bam. Also, let's incorporate the Libyans. Let's incorporate all the dang on Moors. How about we do that? We're all one people anyway, right? I'm just saying, But nah, man, they don't do it, and like I say, it's not the first time that they've been invaded. And they didn't learn the lesson when the Syracusans invaded before Rome. You know what I'm talking about? Nah, man, those them lions. You know what I'm talking about? They ain't the nitty gritty. They the lions, man. That's why I call Hannibal Barker. He's the first lion. Then you got, because their nickname was the Lions Brood. His children's nickname was the Lions Brood. That's what you call them. So that's why I say they're them lions. They like, you can't call them Lannisters, but you can call them Lannisters because they are lions. You know what I'm talking about? But if you want to put a Eurocentric equivalent to it, but they lions in the sense that they'll give you that work. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna talk about that in the second installment. You know what I'm talking about? So other than that, pretty much, we'll be back for part 2. You know what I'm talking about? And yes, he gotta have the elephants. Gotta have the elephants. We gotta put the elephants in there. We'll be back for part 2. Well, we'll keep on looking at Carthage and how this outsourcing goes wrong. And like I say, we're gonna be covering a little bit more about unity and still into economics, because that's what this stuff is about. But it's also about unity and reciprocity and things like that. Because, like I say, man, all this could have been avoided if they did certain things, but they didn't. Stubborn, just stubborn, just stubborn. But yes, look, that's all the time we have. Join us next strong. What I'm talking about. Join us next strong when we talk about part 2. But what was Carthage's political structure like? Will you expand on that next strong? I wonder if his politics was influenced by religion. No, it wasn't influenced by religion. That's one thing that it was, like I said, it was influenced earlier. It was basically a democracy. You could sort of say it was an oligarchy, depending on who you read. Some people say it was like an oligarchy. The political system was a senate, but the political system is also chaotic in a sense where you have all these men that know how to make money. That don't mean they know how to run a state. You know what I'm saying? It's just like when you also have the generals who are also in the political system, but they're the less listened to. But if they fail, they die. But you don't have the same problem with. But can you say it was? I'll expand on a little bit on the political system, a little bit more in part 2. Yeah, I'll definitely do that, because it's sort of hard to say. It's all about I say nitty gritty with love. I'm looking forward to part 2. Yeah. So yeah, for you, Sister Maria, I would definitely expound a little bit more on the political system, in the sense, because it's for accounts. You have to understand this when it comes to Carthage. A lot's what written by Carthage, or sometimes a lot were, and I'm sure we all know this, a lot that is written by us is always written by somebody else. So you have to understand that, like one of the main writers about Carthage is Publius, So you have to understand that a lot of what's written is always written by, it's already written by Rome. It's like you don't know the political system because you have somebody on the outside looking in. They can tell you what it was, but they don't really know because they ain't Carthaginian. Like who can really tell you why they made their port like that? There's a reason, but a Roman can't tell you. He wouldn't know. Besides, he burned it down anyway. But that comes in part two. you know, things like that. It's like okay, another case in point. You have people that wrote on cards and said that they sacrificed children, to Baal or Bahamut. And what you find out, one, here's another thing. They have these cemeteries, child cemeteries called Tophet. Tophet is a Hebrew word which tells you who they are. They have these Tophets. And what you find out during the remains is that one, these cemeteries that have these children who are supposedly sacrificed also have children, one, that weren't sacrificed but died during basically the prenatal time of birth, and they die from all sorts of different things, maybe disease or anything. Because you also have to understand that, I would say prenatal care is sort of a new thing in a sense. It's only been around for a century. You just got to think 1920. You know what I'm saying? Until then, babies died for, didn't have the immunities and things like that. So the life expectancy, was, since ancient times, was a gamble. You know what I'm saying? When you have a child in that sense. And so, but that's the conflict. You have, babies, that died through all sorts of reasons, and they're buried with these so-called sacrificial children remains. There's a conflict. You know what I'm saying? Then you find out that these charred remains, if you basically look at them or you research them, you find out that they have they were burned at the same temperature of a basically like a crematorium, and not an open fire if it was a sacrifice. They have, so then you're like, so they cremated them, but you said that they sacrificed them to their God, but they don't have the, basically those the remains of one that buried with kids that die from disease. You don't bury no sacrifice, with diseased children. So which one is it? You know what I'm saying? Yes, I read a bit about their human and infant sacrifice, which they bought from time. Yeah, but it's inconsistent. Like I say, that's what they say, but who said it? Like I said, it's the Romans that told, something dependent. It's the Romans that said all of that. But they're the enemies of Rome. Propaganda. That's why, I was looking at more research on what these remains look like and what they meant, physically, But yeah, with their sacrifices, it probably happened, but like I say, conflict. Why? Like I said, why would you bury a sacrifice or a kid with or a sacrificial kid with with kids that died during the prenatal. It don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. So now, it's like, well, we gotta do more digging, but we don't have no Carthage in the accounts. So who can really explain it? You know what I'm saying? You know, not saying it didn't happen, but it just, for my mind, there's a conflict. And when there's a conflict that doesn't make sense, it's like, which one is it? And what do you mean? And then you have to do more investigative reports, and you got to do detective work and keep on digging, scratching, you know. And I'm not an archaeologist, but you got to keep on digging, keep on scratching, But yeah, so, but yeah, we can sort of go also into that a little bit more. You know what I'm talking about, but that's one thing. Yeah, it's weird. Like, well, that's something we could talk about next strong. So, but join us again when we come back for part 2. When we get into the Second Punic War, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the political structure anyway, because that political structure is a pain in the neck. They just won't act right, We're gonna talk a little bit more about Hannibal and things like that. We're gonna talk about the destruction of Carthage. I just said propaganda. Yeah, we'll talk about how Carthage must be destroyed and whatnot. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. I ain't gonna hold you long, because I ain't about to turn this into no dang on lecture. I'm talking about, where it's long and then you just fall asleep. So, but give thanks for this one, and I will see you next strong for part 2, man. We'll get more into it and more in depth. So give thanks and peace.